Hello all, and welcome to this afternoon's beer review, which I am dubbing the Tropical Depression beer review. So if you notice, it's high afternoon right now, it's bright outside, but not too bright because it's sun shining through a thick layer of clouds. There's a tropical depression sitting right offshore, so there's not really much wind blowing right now. And even though the temperature is around 87 degrees, with the humidity being what it is, it feels pretty much about 101, 102 degrees. You can see from the t-shirt here, it's all wet and sticky. I've been sweating. And also, too, because I've been helping my dad paint his house, I've had about 3 IPAs already a couple hours ago. And driving home, I was like, I want to have another beer, but I want to have a beer that's suited for the weather. And I want to have a beer I haven't reviewed yet. And so for that reason, because it's cheap and because it's available, and because I live in Hawaii, I am picking Primo, which has this tagline right here, Hawaii's original beer. Which technically it is. The brand name has been around since the 1900s. Well, 1897 technically. So for decades, from about early 1900s into the 1960s, you had a choice in between Primo beer and Royal beer, and those were the two beers that you get in Hawaii. And you know, everyone had the one that they liked. Starting in the late 1960s, beers from the mainland started getting imported over, and first Royal beer went out of business, and then eventually Primo was bought out, and its production ceased for several years, until it was purchased by the Pabst Brewing Company, which revived the brand name. Now, what can I tell you about Primo? Primo is brewed in California. So since it was revived about 10 years ago, it's been brewed in California ever since. And local people tend not to actually drink Primo anymore. Back in the day, back in the 1970s, there were still Primo loyalists. They eventually moved on once production ceased in the early 90s. And so, when you think of macrolagers that people in Hawaii drink, well, it's actually a pretty complicated picture. Most people over the age of about 40 sort of drink Coors Light, including my grandfather. Most people under the age of 40 drink Heineken on this island, or notably on the Big Island, it's kind of different. People drink Steinlager, and that's sort of the macro brewery split. Of the locally produced beers, the ones that, Kona and Maui tend to have some loyalists, but they're both really second next to Coors Light, Heineken, and Steinlager. So, who drinks Primo? Honestly, mostly tourists. It's basically much in the same way that Foster's is the Australian beer, that nobody in Australia really drinks. Primo is the Hawaiian beer that no one in Hawaii really drinks. There are a few, but not too many. That said, it's not that bad. When you're thinking about adjunct lagers, it's not that bad. It's not god-awful. There's goodness knows there's a lot more worse macro lagers out there. So what's this unique thing about its macro lager status? Well, instead of using corn as an adjunct, it uses sugar because of Hawaii. Because traditionally, Hawaii was a lot easier to get, pressed sugar juice as opposed to corn syrup. So it uses sugar as an adjunct instead of corn. Other than that, it's pretty much your bog standard American adjunct lager. So, shall we? Not that there is much to be shall there in this tall boy. Going to be using the Pilsner glass. So, bright yellow, as you can see here, with a fizzy white head, highly carbonated. You can see that bubbling on the bottom there. Head retention is pretty good for an adjunct lager. And it smells like most adjunct lagers do. You got a bit of crackery malts there, and a bit of earthy hops, but both of them fairly muted compared to craft beers. Very light bodied, as most adjunct lagers are. Though I have to say that the carbonation is not too apparent even for the style, which is pretty good in my book. In the front, the sweetest, the most softest whisper, crackery malts. And just a hint of bitter finish. It doesn't completely clean the palate. And it's gone in a second. Honestly, not much there, but not really expecting much there. If I could differentiate this from most American adjunct lagers, I would definitely say it's on the sweeter side, and that's about it. There's a certain sweetness in the front, and especially in the finish. It's not as dry a finish as most adjunct lagers. There's lingering sweetness there, but not much else going on. And at 4.6 ABV and being an adjunct lager, not really expecting much else to be going on there. Am I going to go and seek out Primo and drink it? Well, maybe when the weather's like this and I don't have much money. Yeah. If the weather's like this and I don't have much money, I'm probably going to go and try to find a pack of Sierra Nevada Pilsner or maybe Anderson Valley Goes. But an adjunct lager, likely not. But it was fun. I got to go and discuss the history of beer in Hawaii for a little bit, which Primo is a essential part of. And you know, what can I say? It's part of the history. It's part of the history of Hawaii, period, and part of the history of beer in Hawaii. So I can't completely dismiss it. But as something to drink, yeah, I'm kind of going to dismiss it. I mean, even as macrolagers go, it's kind of weak. So that's your beer review this hot, steamy Sunday afternoon. Hoping the weather is better at your end, because God knows it is like a sauna here. That's your beer review for this afternoon, folks. Cheers.